Hello and welcome back to the Love Energetics podcast. My name is Maria. I am your transformation coach, manifestation expert, and I am the creator of the Love Energetics method. This is the space where soulmate manifestation meets self-love, and we talk about all things mindset shifts, manifestation principles, and self-image work that's going to help you not only create your dream love life, but your dream life in general and become the best version of yourself. I am your guide to awakening you to soul-led transformation and becoming aligned with your highest self. Whether you're single, dating, or calling in your soulmate, you're going to learn how to embody your lucky and love identity that we all have within us and become the version of you who naturally attracts your soul-aligned partner, as well as the dream life that you desire. We're going to be talking about all things powerful insights, real-life success stories, and practical strategies that are going to help you unlock the love that you deserve. And with that, let's get into today's episode. I have a really good topic for you guys today, and it is all about the energetic formula to acceptance. I had this idea to make this its own podcast episode when I was filming my last podcast episode, The Cure to Unlucky in Love Syndrome, which is where we talked about all things toxic dating patterns. And I realized that was a core component of the process, but I wouldn't have done the topic justice or done you guys justice to really be able to achieve full acceptance if I tried to combine it in that other video. So I decided to make it a completely separate video. Also, funny little story here is I'm kind of changing the introduction to this podcast every time I make a new episode. So if you've been listening to every single episode, you may have noticed that I'm trying to see what I really like, because there's just so much potential and vision that I have for this podcast that it's kind of hard to just encompass in a quick little 30-second intro. So I'm trying to see what I like. So if you're noticing that and you found an intro that I did that you thought was really great and you specifically really liked it, honestly, just DM me and let me know which one's your favorite, because I would love to get your feedback on that. But other than that, I also was on the fence of talking about the energetic formula of acceptance today versus a future podcast episode. I did do a poll on my Instagram story between doing this or debunking common dating myths. And it was so funny, like all day, it just kept becoming 50-50. Every now and then, one of them would get ahead of the other. But like at the end of the night, it still ended 50-50. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the energetic formula acceptance episode first, because it does really tie into the last two episodes nicely. So your healing era isn't optional was episode 3, and the cure to unlucky in love syndrome was last episode 4. And those are both in the healing era component of the Love Energetics method. If you want to hear more about what the Love Energetics method is, my first podcast episode and the second one go more in depth on like the different phases and why I created it the way that I did. So you can go back and learn those. In general too, I would say listen to my podcasts from the beginning. I'm trying to make them more like a book per se, where they build on top of each other so that you're constantly learning more and more and going into more deeper advanced concepts. So that's kind of my idea for it. So I would highly recommend just listening to the podcast episodes in order so you always have the full background. But I will try to like catch you guys up in each episode a little bit here and there where I can as well. I just don't want to go too long, and I want to give you all the juicy new information in each and every episode. So moral of the story is I just thought the acceptance episode ultimately did weave in better in this order, but we will do the debunking common dating strategies episode the following week. So that is still coming, and I really appreciate whenever you guys do vote or you do tell me what you want to hear on the podcast, because I actually do incorporate that into what I talk about. So if wherever you're listening to this, comment on what you want to hear more of in future episodes or what questions you have, so I can incorporate that into my lineup of future episodes and make sure I'm touching on the specific things that you want me to dive deeper into. So this is a group thing. I don't just want to come up with things on my own, although I can, but I want to partner with you guys on that. So I'd love to hear more from you, and thank you to everyone who voted. So back into acceptance, right? So the reason that I thought that this flowed really well, besides just being in the same category as the healing era, is in episode 3, where we talked about why your healing era isn't optional. that kind of flows into this because acceptance is not only a component of the healing era, but if you have emotional baggage, that is a full out dead stop concrete wall for acceptance. You will not be able to achieve acceptance if you still have emotional baggage. So really important that, we got that down first. And then second of all, when you do have emotional baggage, that is going to magnify the wounds that you already have. I used the metaphor in that episode talking about like a backpack where you're putting more textbooks in every relationship that you have that's magnifying those wounds, and it's really just creating a ripple effect and really just setting you up to recreate this cycle over and over again until you finally succumb to the healing era and do this work so that you can heal the lesson and clear out the past to create something new. So that is another reason why it's really important that we have those episodes interweave into this one. Acceptance is it's a very vague term. Like, oh yeah, like, okay, fine, I accept it. What does that really mean? So I think similarly with what I said with the healing era, a lot of us procrastinate healing because it's uncomfortable and our ego tries to push us away from it and think that we don't need to heal, and because it's hard to really take accountability, right? We don't want to admit that we played a part in a bad situation that happened to us. We don't want to admit that we are creating that, right? And if you think about it, think about common manifestation, mainstream type of things that you hear. Everybody's always talking about, oh, I manifested this, manifested that. But no one's talking about the bad things that are happening in their life that they're also manifesting too, because we are manifesting 24/7. Our subconscious creates 95% of our reality. So whatever is going on in your subconscious is what you're manifesting. Going back to why we rarely reach acceptance is because we procrastinate the healing, which means we're procrastinating the acceptance. And there's also some other deeper reasons as to why we rarely fully reach acceptance, which is why I wanted to give this the full podcast episode, because this topic deserves that. And I'm going to go deeper into why we have a hard time achieving that and how to achieve that. As someone who has achieved acceptance over some very difficult things, which I will give you some real life. Sorry, my chair is if you're watching this, my chair is stuck on the rug. Hold on one second. So we're back. Chair has been adjusted. Going back to last week's episode on how to cure unlucky in love syndrome, I talked about the root of why toxic dating patterns form and how that happens. And I gave very specific examples. So again, if you didn't listen to that, I highly recommend that you do. The reason you need acceptance to stop these toxic dating patterns is because you can't create anything new until you heal from the past. If you want to create something new and you want to change the future to be a different outcome than the outcomes that you have now, then you have to heal it. Healing the past is just a non-negotiable. The reason that you want to achieve acceptance is so that you can end these toxic dating patterns as well and start creating a new future for yourself that's more aligned with what you desire versus continuing to create these unfulfilling experiences that lead you to where you don't want to be. And then you have to start over again, right? So another reason that this ties so nicely into last couple episodes. And in addition to that, when you hold on to these traumatic experiences, right? Because if you are holding on to a past experience, then you don't have acceptance for it. And that is really just creating stronger neural pathways for limiting beliefs that you formed from those experiences. So it's just fueling the cycle. So the less that you accept a situation, the less acceptance that you have for a perceived negative situation in your life, the more that these toxic dating patterns that we talked about in the last episode will continue. So that's really important. And these toxic dating patterns are creating emotional blocks in your life that are affecting your love life specifically, which is what we talk about the most on here, but really just any relationship, whether that's a friendship, a family member, anything like that. And these emotional blocks are going to actually influence you because it's a subconscious program, right? Because you don't realize that you have these emotional blocks. You don't usually realize that you have these limiting beliefs, right? They're in your subconscious, also known as unconscious mind. Because those blocks are there, it creates a belief in your brain that's going to influence you to make decisions and take action that is going to have you ultimately find yourself in experiences that re-solidify that limiting belief that you have. It's going to amplify it further, making it harder to feel accepting, and it's going to continue to amplify those toxic dating patterns, and it's going to strengthen that neural pathway even more, which is ultimately, when it cycles through again, it's going to create an even bigger circumstance to reflect that. And it's not because the universe hates you or has it out for you. It's how our brains work, but it's also because we're being called to heal these things. And if it's just a minor situation, you're less likely to do something about it, right? Because we procrastinate healing. But the bigger the situation gets, the more we really wake up, and the more times it's repeated too, the more we're like, wait a minute, this pattern can't be a coincidence, right? It's got to be me at this point. So eventually these circumstances get more and more severe and more emotionally triggering, where we finally decide to do something about it. And I'm going to talk about some of the experiences that happened for me like that today as well, to give you more examples of how I worked through that. Now that we are just very clear on why episodes 3 and 4 are very important prerequisites before you listen to the full episode here of acceptance today, and why they're all linked as part of the healing era, let's dive really deep into acceptance now. So starting off, I just want to get a good baseline of what acceptance is, because like I said earlier, acceptance, whatever. It's just one of those terms that we all use in our daily life, but we don't really think about the meaning behind it. And there's just something missing that won't let us achieve that acceptance at a deeper level. It's almost I feel like many of us think that we accept something, but because we don't have all of this knowledge or a process to truly get to acceptance, like I'm going to share today, we're almost convincing ourselves that we're accepting of things, but it's actually still affecting us in our day-to-day life and holding us back in life. That's why it's important that I define this at a deeper level. So acceptance is really a component of the healing process, but it's achieving a state of balance, neutrality, and unconditional love for either yourself, a situation, or another person. So that means being neutral about something and achieving a state of balance about a person or a situation means that you are seeing all at once all of the positives and all of the negatives in that person or circumstance. And you're not trying to get it to go away or be different. You see it as, this is what it is, this is perfect, and this is benefiting my life. And you might be thinking, how did my ex cheating on me and stealing everything I own benefit my life? Well, we'll talk about it deeper as we get into, that's just an example, but we'll talk about this deeper. But the point is that is the end result of having acceptance toward a situation. And that could be towards yourself, right? Because we tend to beat ourselves up the most, right? More than anybody else. Or it could be a certain situation, but you have to see it equally for all the positive things and all the negative things. And you have to see it as perfect and benefiting your life, or you don't truly have acceptance. So we're going to go into all of those components at a deeper level. And let me just give you an example so that you could be well, what am I not accepting in my life? So you know that you need to reach acceptance on something when it's something that you relive regularly. So think about it like this. If multiple times a week you're thinking about how your ex did you dirty and you hope his life's going miserably right now, you constantly think about that, or even just a few times a week or a couple times a month, really, depending on, I guess the more frequent you think about it, right, the less accepting you are of it. The less you think about it, the more accepting you are. But we're talking about getting to full acceptance here, right? Which means that you will not ever want to think about this. You don't care to think about it. But if you're thinking about how your ex did you dirty, you want to go look at what he's doing, you're hoping his life is going down the tubes, then you do not have acceptance on that situation. But the thing is that's such a big, obvious example, right? But there are smaller, less obvious examples of where you might not be having acceptance in your life too. And something else that I see a lot that I've definitely been through myself is maybe your friend did something that hurt you in the past. Like maybe she left you out or she talked about you behind your back or something like that. And maybe this was like 2 or 3 years ago, but you still get worried that it might be happening again, and you still think about it, and the same emotion starts to resurface where you feel like worried about loyalty, you feel left out, you feel on the outskirts, anything like that. That's a little bit more of a subtle example, but that means that you don't have acceptance towards that person or that situation either. And that is going to be affecting you in your friendship area of your life or another one of the 8 areas of your life. So it is really important that even these smaller things we reach full acceptance for. Hopefully that kind of stimulated something in your brain to be like, oh yeah, there are a couple things that I definitely know I can work on that I don't have full acceptance over. And I would say, like, kind of like what I was just saying, right? You know that you reached full acceptance if you're completely unbothered. Like if somebody asks you, oh, like, did you see so-and-so got a new house, is engaged, this and that, whatever, and you move on to talk about, and you're just like completely unbothered. You're like, okay, cool. What are you getting to order at the restaurant right now? If you are like completely unbothered, you don't even care to waste energy gossiping or talking about it because you really it doesn't affect you at all. You are completely neutral about it. Then that's when you know that you've reached a place of acceptance. And you might think to yourself like, okay, I have ultimately come to accept certain things. Why do I need this type of method that you're going to talk about? Or why do I need to go through this certain type of process? And the reason for that is, I would say, 2 different things. One is because usually if we go through like the natural way of acceptance, it's usually not full acceptance. So it's still affecting you in your life, even if it's like at a lower scale. I think also a lot of people struggle with holding grudges, and that's also a lack of acceptance. So if you find yourself as a grudge holder, then you definitely need this. And then third, this is a far quicker way to achieve acceptance versus just letting time pass by, like the time heals all wounds. That's not really true. That's actually not true at all. But you might be more and more accepting of something the more that time goes on, but you probably won't fully get there. But with this method, you could get to a place of full acceptance, but you can also get to acceptance at a far quicker pace. So like, wouldn't you rather be over a situation that happened with your ex in a week or 2 versus taking 6 to 8 months to get over somebody? Like, I personally would. So, and I see this happen with my clients literally all the time. There are people that it took them months to get over. And then when we go through, the coaching, the love energetics experience that I have on my offerings, if you're interested, there's links below. But when they go through this acceptance process in this healing era, they flip a switch like that, and they're able to just get that full acceptance, get that neutrality, and move on from this past relationship like it was nothing. So that is another reason why I just felt like it was important for me to share why it's important for using this type of process, using a neuroscience, scientifically and energetically based process to achieve full acceptance. And acceptance is kind of one and the same with unconditional love. So this is like another way to look at what acceptance is. If you think about what unconditional love is, it is loving somebody unconditionally, which means that it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It doesn't matter if the conditions are good or bad, you still love them, which is kind of like with acceptance and emotional balance and neutrality is viewing the equal amount of positives and negatives. So you can really say that, acceptance for you or acceptance for another person can also be viewed as unconditional love. And that is, again, tying back to the love energetics method. Unconditional self-love is the foundation of love energetics. And this is really one of the many reasons why. We need to have emotional balance in that way. And we need to have that deep level of love and appreciation for ourselves. It's really just, again, a non-negotiable in order to manifest and create the lives that we desire. And not just even creating the life that you desire, but actually feeling fulfilled and happy while you're living that life, right? Because there are plenty of people that manifest things from ego-based places and aren't actually happy once they get them. We're talking about manifesting from your higher self where you're actually fulfilled in what you create. And that is why unconditional self-love is the foundation. So this is just a great example of why the Love Energetics method is so successful, why it is so effective, and why I was so thoughtful with creating it, because it ties back to every possible type of situation that we talk about on this podcast when it comes to any type of manifestation strategy, method, any type of energy work, law of the universe, all of that, it ties back to those things. So just a quick little appreciation hit for Love Energetics because it is that freaking good. Why do we need to achieve acceptance though? I feel like I've probably made this case like a few times, but just to kind of recap and solidify why you want to achieve acceptance further, because you might another reason that I feel like I need to say this right now is because you might be listening to this podcast. I can kind of intuitively feel it. You might be listening to this and be like, no, I don't want to forgive that person. I don't want to accept what they did. I'm not going to let this go and let this slide. You know, like that feeling inside you where you just don't want to let something go because you feel like you're giving that person a pass. Like that's where a lot of grudge holding stems from. You are probably, if you struggle with that, you're probably listening to this and being like, I don't want to accept this. I don't want to, because accepting also gives it a sense of like realness, solidifying some type of confirmation and permanality about it. I don't even know if that's a word, but sometimes people are so hesitant to accept because it does feel like final. Okay, I guess that would be the word. Like there's a finality to it where it's like, okay, this actually really happened. I have to accept it. I can't just pretend like this didn't happen anymore or anything like that. So you likely are listening to this, especially with some of the things that you have the most difficulty accepting. You are probably feeling something like that where you don't want to let the situation go for a variety of those types of reasons. And let me go into why you do need to achieve acceptance. I mean, one, you need to achieve acceptance because it's really just, it's kind of like that saying where with the grudge holding, right, is like, if you're holding a grudge, if you're holding on, you're not forgiving somebody, which acceptance and forgiveness, they are two separate things, but they are linked. But you know, when you are holding on to not forgiving somebody, you're not accepting, right? So we can kind of still use that. It's like the drinking the water or drinking poison and expecting the other person to die type of thing. Like if you're not being accepting of a situation, you're not like keeping the other person from feeling the pain. You're only hurting yourself and you're only holding yourself back and creating more of what you don't want. So that's one reason that you really want to achieve acceptance. And really, like before, another reason to achieve acceptance is because it causes a ton of issues in our lives. I mean, I think I've already made that case. If you achieve acceptance, you'll finally be able to experience that feeling of closure, you know, and feel more happy in your day-to-day life. You're going to be less triggered by things that happen. You know, you're going to have more freedom to create new things in your life, more of what you desire. You're not going to be repeating or the past or being held back by the past or creating more unfulfilling experiences. I mean, the benefits are pretty much endless to why you would want to achieve acceptance, but I'm going to go into a lot of those things on a deeper level. But I'll also say too is like, it's pretty normal for us to struggle with acceptance because of how it originates. It's very common in our society to struggle with acceptance. This isn't like a very unique thing. Like, don't feel like you're alone. This is a common thing that a lot of people struggle with. And I'll explain the origin of why that is. So really like why that happens is because as humans, we're technically energetic beings. This is going to get a little bit more into the spiritual elements that I love and I do want to talk about on here because ultimately I think it's really important to live your best life is to get into the spiritual aspects of things. But if just kind of going off this spiritual section, so bear with me here. If you're not super spiritual, just listen to this because I think it's a very good wake-up call to why we struggle with acceptance. So as humans, we are energetic beings, right? Because we have a soul. We are energy in motion, right? Like we're not actually like a solid thing. Like we even learned this back in science, right? Like we're just particles. And because we are more solid, right? The particles move slower versus like water, liquid, or gas, they move faster. So we are having a human experience as an energetic being in the physical world. So when I talk about all of this energetic stuff, there's also a lot of physical things at play. And part of being a human is that we learn through experiences best, which, you know, think back to when you were in school, right? And you sat in a lecture and just listened to a teacher talk. You probably didn't learn nearly as much versus when you learned on the job. Personally, as someone who got a psychology degree in college and then went and worked in HR for 9 or 10 years, I learned a lot more about HR on the job than I did in school. And to be honest, I have learned more about psychology, human behavior, neuroscience, spirituality, manifestation. I've learned way more about this stuff than anything I learned in that psychology degree in college because I'm learning by experience. Doing all of this stuff today, I'm learning by embodying it. So quick little tangent on that. Ultimately, we learn through experience best. And part of the reason for that little neuroscience lesson for you is that we have mirror neurons in our brains, which is why we repeat things that we observe. So this is like common knowledge, right? When you're like, you notice how kids will repeat things that you say, or kids will do things that they see you doing. Like, it's just a way that we operate as humans. This is another good example. If you move to another country, like say you're an American and you move to the United Kingdom, eventually you're going to pick up a British accent because of mirror neurons. With mirror neurons and acceptance, tying that back, because we learn through experience and we have these mirror neurons, kind of like what I said in the toxic dating patterns previous episode, the cure to unlucky in love syndrome. We learn a lot of our toxic dating patterns based on our parents, our primary caretakers, what we learned growing up. And so acceptance is no different because we see our parents most of the time, right? Because we're not taught how to really achieve acceptance. We see our parents reliving things over and over. Like, honestly, like if you're my age and you have like a boomer parent, I'm going to be 30 soon, but like, you know, you have boomer parents. Think about how many times they repeat the same story and hold on to the same stuff and just do not let it go, right? We see our parents doing that, holding on to things from the past. And whether we realize it or not, those mirror neurons are having us observe that. And that's how we learn to go about things that happen to us. So, you know, it's really just a subconscious program working against us. We are taught to not let go of things because that's what we see other people doing. So it's really a collective experience, you know, that's why we're not alone in it. But we do have the power to change it. So that's why we're talking about this today. And I also said this in the last episode too. Our brains are plastic. We have the neuroplasticity in our brains, which means they are more malleable to mold in the sense of you can change. Like previously, neuroscience thought that, you know, whatever you learned as a kid, it is what it is. You can't change, but we can change no matter how old we are. Our brains are very plastic and it's way easier to change than science had previously thought. So over, I'd say like the last 10 years, that became very apparent. That's good to know, right? Because we might have learned to not be accepting of things in the past, but we are very capable of doing that now, which is why when I take my clients through the healing era, they're able to experience acceptance and moving on from things and changing the way they previously thought about a situation like that. As long as you have the right tools, you can change a lot quicker than you could even imagine. So that's kind of why it's hard for us to achieve acceptance. And I did give you like the background into high level, some of the benefits and positive things about why you'd want to achieve acceptance. But here are some of the negative things that could happen if you don't achieve acceptance and you continue to hold on to things in your daily life. So physically, it actually causes a lot of issues for us in the body. Our body processes trauma and difficult situations by like holding stored energy in the body. And I talked about this actually in my story, so in episode 1, and I definitely also touched on it in episodes 3 and 4 as well, talking about the healing era. But when I was in my previous abusive relationship, I stored a lot of trauma from that relationship in my hip, which is what caused me to need a hip surgery. That's what really catapulted my spiritual awakening and really taught me so much about acceptance, and is why I wanted to talk about it on here. Physically, we store a lot of trauma in our body, and so if we aren't accepting, we're just holding it all within us, and that's what leads to, you know, sickness and disease in the body. So if you're not accepting things, that is a root cause of any type of sickness or disease in the body, anything that is out of balance in your body, because again, we learned in science, homeostasis, right? We are meant to be balanced. So that's something. And if you think about like the common phrase, shake it off, like Taylor Swift's song, that's how we really need to approach this type of negative situations that happen to us in life. Like, shake it off, let it out of your body. And so that is something that is part of the acceptance protocol, is that we need to make sure that we don't get this stuff stuck in our body. It's okay to feel your emotions, right? It's when you suppress and ignore and don't actually tend to your emotions when you typically store stuff. So we do want you to feel it. You do need to feel it in order to heal it. So it's not about not feeling emotions. It's about processing them the right way. So when you're not accepting, you're not processing your emotions the right way. At the end of the day, even though sickness and disease in the body being a negative side effect of acceptance, it's not directly related to the dating life like I normally talk about, but like health is one of the things that we value the most, but we also take it for granted. So regardless, you want to pay attention to this because if you want to thrive in your love life and just life in general, then you want to be healthy. I'll go into the step-by-step of the acceptance protocol, but getting the negative emotions that we store in our body from not accepting something out of our body is really, really important. Two things that I do that I really love that I find very effective is literally shaking. You can look up like shake dancing. I have a couple songs that like bring out the rage in me so I can like connect to that emotion of like whatever issue I'm not accepting. I like connect back to that emotion, and I use music is so helpful for like channeling a feeling. So if you use a song that really helps you kind of get into that mindset, and then you literally like walk around like shaking, like if you're watching this, I'm shaking my hands right now. If you're not, if you're just listening, well, I'm shaking my body. And you can look this up. I just call it shake dancing, shaking your body. That helps you release stored trauma in your body. That's why you'll see like animals doing that. Have you ever seen like a dog shake itself off after it's traumatized from being thrown in the pool? That's literally why. They're shaking it off. They're getting that emotion out of the body and resetting. That's one thing. The other thing is the EFT tapping. So tapping on the meridian points of your face. If you are watching this, I'm tapping on them. If you're not, you can look up Brad Yates on YouTube. He is my tapping go-to guy. That is another way of clearing emotions out of the body. So those are two things you can do for that. Aside from, the physical aspects of not accepting things that happen to you, you want to get it physically out of your body for the health benefits, but you also want to get it physically out of your body because from a mental, emotional perspective, it's actually going to make breaking the pattern in your brain that much easier. So when you get it out of the body, because our body and our minds are connected, right? They kind of feed off one another for information. It makes the mental aspect of not accepting a situation and being triggered by future situations much less automatic, much more challenging, and much easier to actually pattern interrupt, especially in the moment. And that is like literally, I would say, one of the most difficult things, one of the things that we don't talk about with regulating our nervous system and rewiring our brain and doing all the manifestation creation stuff. In the moment, stuff like that, that is when like it's the most pivotal. So get it out of the body first, and you're going to set your brain up for success with rewiring that much faster. So you get out of your body, but there are things that are going to happen in your day-to-day life that trigger you, right? That trigger the negative memories, especially because when you have this stuck in your body, you're not accepting of it, right? You haven't healed from it. You are likely creating the same situation over and over again, right? You were cheated on in the past, and then you're dating and you're starting to see this guy and things are starting to get more serious, and you notice that a girl texts him and you don't know who she is. That is likely going to trigger you because you haven't healed from the past relationship where your ex cheated on you, and you're going to start thinking that oh, here it comes again, I'm getting cheated on. You're going to start that spiral of an emotion. But you have to break the connection to the brain at this point. In the middle, being triggered by something like that, you have to do everything within you to stop yourself from reliving that emotion again, stop yourself from doing the thought spiral down the negative thought spiral. Like, stop yourself from doing that. What you really need to do is kind of just, the reason for this is because our brain assigns meaning to things, and our brain, because it is more wired for survival skills, it's always going to be looking out for the next threat. And while that is not an animal hunting us nowadays, there are things that trigger that flight or flight system that are not life or death, like something like this, like thinking you're being cheated on. It's going to register that as a threat. And so what you really need to do is get conscious. Oh my God, I'm starting the spiral, being triggered by this because of my ex cheating on me. I'm going to stop this right now. So you have to just sit there for a second, stop the spiral, stop the pattern, take a couple deep breaths and be like, okay, I'm stopping this emotional loop. I'm not doing this. That's an old pattern. I'm letting this go. And then you have to guide your mind to another thought. So hard stop there. Okay. And that's how you can rewire your brain really quick, is if you stop it from going down that emotional spiral and redirect it to something else. So then you're going to break the pattern and weaken that neural pathway in your brain, making it smaller and smaller and smaller. And then when you're working on the acceptance, you can create the acceptance neural pathway and make it bigger, bigger, bigger. So that's kind of how the neuroscience of that works. So those are two mental and physical reasons, right? Like why you want to achieve acceptance, because you don't want the physical negative health effects, and you don't want to be constantly triggered by things that are coming up that remind you of a past experience you haven't healed or accepted from yet, right? So those are two things, right? I'm going to touch upon them again when I go through the acceptance protocol, but wanted you to at least get that perception of them first before we go into that. One of the things that I did to first create acceptance in my life, going back to my hip surgery, which was a physical result of me not accepting things about my past, not healing from my past, and having a traumatic situation in my life. After my hip surgery, I realized that I was unaccepting for so long about my life and where it was at. And I had to just get to this place of fully accepting. And so the problem was that when I got out of my abusive relationship, I didn't heal from it. And so I kept creating more situations, right? Like those toxic dating patterns, amplifying the wounds. I did that when I was dating and single, and it was getting worse and worse, more and more amplified, and affecting me negatively from an emotional and physical perspective more and more. I was not accepting of that situation that happened to me. I felt like a victim at the time before I knew about any of this work. And so ultimately I was unaccepting for so long. And so the hip surgery was a wake up call for me. And that's kind of going back to what I said, is that, the cycles and the patterns are going to get bigger and bigger and more amplified until you finally realize, I need to do something about this. I need to take responsibility. And so that was my wake up call, was hip surgery, which was, thinking about it, it was the perfect wake up call for me, because I normally would exercise. In fact, I used to over exercise to drown out the noise of my life and kind of just put off doing type of healing and emotional work. And I would just over exercise to suppress and ignore and just distract myself. And so in addition to like going out, obviously not when the lockdown happened, but like going out, I found all these ways to distract myself. And by being stuck in my parents' home, not being able to drive anywhere, to walk anywhere, to work out, to go out and see anybody, because I really didn't want to go out on crutches in public. And also like everything was closed because it was the pandemic. It was like that time where you could go out to eat, if anything. So I was unaccepting for so long. And my hip surgery was where I got to a place where I had to just fully accept where I was in my life. And once I did that, that is when my life really started to change. My life was not changing when I hated where I was unaccepting of it, wasn't just coming to full terms with it. And once I accepted it, I was actually able to shift and change my life. And the reason for that is when you aren't accepting, it's coming from a place of lack. So kind of like that manifestation type of speak and process that we talk about. You can't create anything with feelings of lack, feelings of want, need, and feelings of I don't have, because that's going to amplify more of that in your reality. So when you aren't accepting of something, you're also reflecting that lack and not having, and that's not going to bode well for you to create what you desire, and just have a successful manifestation process. Acceptance is going to help you neutralize the emotion. You're going to feel balanced about the situation, and that is going to help you in the manifestation process, and it's going to also help you in the healing process, so which are intertwined. That is one of my first examples of acceptance that I wanted to share, that I thought could be relevant in kind of tying this whole situation together, especially with the physical and the emotional pieces of it. What I had to ultimately do to have full acceptance over the hip surgery and for my life was I had to look at the positives and negatives of having that hip surgery. I had to look at the positives and negatives of being in that abusive relationship. I had to get to a place where I was neutral and balanced about both of those things and how I could appreciate them, right? Like think about how Ariana Grande says, I'm so grateful for my ex, right? You need to get to a point where you are so grateful for it because it positively affected your life in some way. And most of the time, we're thinking about how it's affecting us negatively. So when you add in the positive elements, that's automatically going to get you to that neutral balance place that we've been talking about with acceptance. So just start thinking about the positives and you're good, because you're likely naturally already thinking of the negatives. So you want to be grateful for it, but you want to be like really grateful for it. And the way to know that you are actually grateful that this situation happened to you, which you need to be, right, to be fully accepted, is if you are willing to go through it again. If you say, oh yeah, like I'm so grateful for this, but oh my God, I would never want that to happen to me again, then you're not fully at the deepest energetic levels grateful for it and therefore balanced and neutral about it, because you're probably just saying it or convincing yourself of that to make yourself feel better or make yourself feel like you're accepting. But energy doesn't lie. And so you really need to get to that place where you are so grateful for it and it benefited your life that you would do it again to get the benefits that you got from that situation. And I mean, here's an example again, like for me, right? So if I never had the hip issues and had to get hip surgery and had to sit home, I would have never gone through my spiritual awakening. Okay. Like I was asleep. I was reliving the same unfulfilling stuff day after day, living life on autopilot, and I needed something to wake me up. So yeah, I would go through that again to get what the benefits that gave me. And I would going through an abusive relationship again too. I'm grateful for that, because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have had such a tumultuous love life. And that wouldn't have made me the person that I am today, the person that had such a strong desire for true, healthy, passionate love. Like going through that situation made me want to truly find my life partner, like more than ever. I was not willing to settle after going through that whole experience. And I'm so glad that I went through that experience, because then I was so committed to not settling that I actually found my dream partner. And, a lot of people settle in love and relationships and they don't even realize it because of all these subconscious programmings that are going through their head. So if I didn't go through that abusive relationship, if I didn't have so much struggle in my dating life, and if I didn't go through that hip surgery to trigger my spiritual awakening and learning about all of this mindset manifestation work, I would have never met my soulmate and never been in my dream relationship right now, getting married in 3 months. Okay. So that is how you create acceptance. That is how you get to a place of gratitude where you'd be willing to go through it again. Let's go through the whole process, right, of achieving acceptance. This is going to be like your new protocol for anything that you feel like you're not accepting of in your life. And this could be some really small stuff. And there are small things that you're not fully aware of. And I highly recommend to start small. Like if you're somebody that is still highly emotionally triggered by being cheated on or in an abusive relationship or something like I just mentioned, you probably don't want to start with that. I would start with something like maybe the guy that you went on a couple dates with that ghosted you, coming to acceptance with that. Like start with something a little bit lower just so that you can see the process work and see how it plays out. Because usually if you try to start with something that you're already highly emotionally triggered by, it's probably not going to work for you because of those high emotions. And if one, it doesn't work for you, you're not going to believe in it. You're not going to actually try it again and do it the right way. And two, if you try to do something that you're highly emotional towards and it's still like hitting you really hard, like a level 10 type of thing, your ego is going to bring up a lot of resistance to you actually doing it and making it work. So the key here is to get better at it with smaller things and then you work your way up to this. That would be what I would recommend. The only other scenario when I help my clients go through it in our one-on-one Love Energetics curriculum, that's a little bit of a different story because I'm guiding them through it so we can hit those hard-hitting type of scenarios. But when you're doing it on your own and you don't have somebody to, catch your blind spots and catch your unconscious, subconscious programming and kind of check you when you need to be checked and wake you up to certain things and guide you certain ways, you can't do the big stuff right away. So unless you want to work with me or somebody else to go through the bigger stuff, I would recommend trying smaller stuff first and working your way up to bigger stuff. Or if you just want to be done with your lame ass cheating ex and you want to just move on and feel fully accepted and healed from all this stuff as soon as possible, as 100% as possible, as effective as possible, then I'm your girl. I have So many options to work together. I have all those links in the caption below, or you can just go to my website, mariamanifest.com. But I do have, single one-on-one lucky and love activation sessions, which are really more geared towards like a very specific circumstance, like getting acceptance from this one ex that cheated on you. We can work on that. Or, if you've had like a lifetime of repeating patterns of being cheated on or abused or, unfulfilling dating experiences, and you have like a lot more than just one circumstance to heal, which is usually more common. That is why I do the 3 and 6 month coaching packages of the Love Energetics curriculum. So we go through everything and we facilitate deep, lifelong, permanent transformation in those. So you can look into that option as well. And then I am going to have a self-paced online course with some group coaching involved coming very soon. My Lucky and Love flagship course. I'm still debating on if I'm calling it Lucky and Love or Love Energetics Mastery, because I kind of use those interchangeably to go over this process. So if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. But you can also get on the waitlist for that course if you want to do something a little bit more self-paced. And then if you think that you need more one-on-one guidance after that, then you might do like a one-on-one session. That might be an option for you too. So you have 3 different things: a long-term coaching, a one-on-one activation session, or a self-paced course option for you to start diving, implementing, and changing your love life, and also just changing your life for the best in any area of life. So just a quick little plug on ways that you can really take all of this stuff that I'm sharing and implement it fast. But if you just want to do this on your own and use what I'm sharing in this free podcast, you can do that. I just recommend that you don't start with the highly emotional stuff first. So I just want to say that. So step 1 for achieving acceptance is neutralizing the emotions around the experience. So you're going to want to go back to what we talked about, the physical release, releasing the negative emotion, the lack of acceptance, that grudge holding, lack of forgiveness, that anger, that frustration, that regret, that shame, that guilt, anything like that is stuck in your body from a situation that you're not accepting of, you're not forgiving of, you're not healed from. You got to release that from the body. I gave you 2 examples, shaking and tapping, that you could do. When I experience anger, for example, I literally scream in a pillow or scream in my car, or I cry. There are so many ways. Feel your emotions. Do not suppress them. Obviously, you don't go screaming at somebody, but if you can go scream in private, like I do sometimes, do that. Because I will tell you right now, I am much healthier in my life when I let stuff out. I swear, the days when I'm angry and I hold it in, the next day I wake up with a sore throat. So you got to let this stuff out and process it. And those are a few ways that you can do that. So the physical release, also that emotional release letters method that I talked about in episode 3, your healing era isn't optional. That is a great emotional release method for people who have hurt you in the past. Go back to that episode. I did a step-by-step guide on how to do that exact process. And I take my clients through that in the healing era too. And they receive outstanding results from that. So that's something else you can do. And then do that mental recircuiting process to neutralize the emotions as well that we talked about. So when you're triggered, get your mind off it, right? Like breath work, and go to a different thought. Think about what you're going to have for lunch today. Think about a happy memory that you're grateful for, a vacation you have coming up. Do anything to take yourself out of the negative spiral with your negative thoughts, your negative emotions, and just being so caught up in that moment. Get yourself out of it in any way that you can. That's the step 1 of neutralizing the emotions around the experience. And then the step 2 is getting to that place of emotional balance, which is also that neutrality, that unconditional love, right? The equal parts good and bad. You have to see the situation that you want acceptance from with equal parts of positive things and equal parts of negative things. But you have to also get to a place where you are fully appreciating it and grateful for the experience of how it bettered your life and was so perfect that it happened. Okay. Ask yourself, how is this going to make my life better when you are going through a situation? How is this the best thing that happened to me? How is this actually perfect? How is this actually working out in my favor? Get yourself to a place of asking questions like that when something negative happens, instead of going to the worst case scenario. And just doing that alone will literally change your life. So ultimately, that step 2 of that emotional balance, get to that place of being so grateful for it that you would be willing to go through it again because of everything that you got out of it. Okay, that is the emotional balance step 2, unconditional love result type of thing. And I'm kind of thinking, I kind of want to write this out somehow. Maybe I'll like make this into a little PDF type of situation, or I'll try to like write it on the screen and make a visual, because I think that'll be helpful for you guys to understand. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I'm probably going to put like a little visual on the screen. If you're just listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, I'm probably going to make like a PDF version of this, because it is so important. But if you are in my Love Energetics coaching curriculum, or ultimately when you do the course, there will definitely be step-by-steps that you get from that. So that's something to also consider if you really want to dive deep and implement this. And then step 3 is shifting your perception of the memory in a different way, right? So like, for example, with my abusive relationship, I had to shift the perception of that memory from being a victim of domestic violence. That's what I had initially viewed myself as, because that's what people say people that get into an abusive relationship. Oh, they're a victim of domestic violence. And I'm not saying that in a offensive way. I'm saying that because truthfully, that does not serve you to identify as that. Like, that is not helping your life. If you don't take responsibility for your part in creating that, then you cannot create something new. So if you continue to believe that that just happened to you and you had no part in it, then you are not going to be able to create something new. So you're just hurting yourself, and you're preventing yourself from growth and evolution and having more of what you want in life. So I had to shift my perception of the memory to, no, that's actually not what happened. I attracted this, and I accept my part in creating that. And I was at peace with it happening because it bettered my life, and I needed that to happen. And I'm glad that it happened. All right. My commitment to finishing this podcast episode is so real right now, because my phone is literally about to die. My ring light just died. I didn't realize I was talking so much, but I guess I am. So hopefully you guys are getting a lot of benefit out of this. And just a quick second, if you are getting at least one thing valuable out of this, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to this podcast, leave me a 5-star review, anything that you can help me to grow this podcast. It has always been a dream of mine to share this type of information and spread it with more women, and just help continue to reawaken you guys to your soul-led transformation, live the life you daydream about, and also manifest your soulmate and live your dream love life. So anything that you can do to support this podcast, I'm taking the time to share all this information with you for free and help you transform. So if you could subscribe, leave with me a 5-star review, that would be amazing and so friggin' appreciative. So thank you. So I just want to say that quick before I forgot, and let me get back into what I was just saying. That was my example of shifting the perception of the memory with my abusive relationship, was shifting it to something that I took full responsibility for. I created, which allowed me to create something new, allowed me to be fully grateful and accepting of it, like literally thinking, okay, this actually is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I'm so happy this happened. So you have to shift your perception of the memory to being something negative that happened to you, something that took away your power, something that made you feel hopeless or limiting, to something that is actually super empowering, super positive, and change your life. So you really need to shift your perception of the memory, and, don't be hard on yourself. Like, that is a hard thing to do, and it takes time. Like, obviously I did not get to that place with my abusive relationship right off the bat, right? I had to go through months of experiencing, continuing the cycle, continuing patterns before I got to that place. And there was, I would say like almost a year that went by really before I got to that place of acceptance, probably more before I really truly got to acceptance. So have compassion with yourself. And that's why I said, don't start with something so highly emotional like that, do it with other things first. That was kind of probably why I got to the place where I had more acceptance over my hip surgery first. I got worked through that, and then I was able to get the acceptance for my abusive relationship after that. At the end of the day, acceptance is so key to, one, successfully healing, changing your life, creating something new, and you're just going to be able to create more of what you desire, something new in the future, by achieving full acceptance. If you are not achieving full acceptance, then you are going to continue to create cycles of things that are undesirable, that you don't want. You're going to have stuck emotion in your body that is going to affect you from a physical and emotional perspective, and you're going to be way more triggered in your day-to-day life. Like, wouldn't you rather be so much more unbothered by things because you got to a place of neutrality and acceptance for past situations that happened to you? And also just being able to go about your life with any type of inconvenience and being like, oh, why is this the best thing that happened to me? Like, I could have literally just did that right now. I could have spiraled out of control, that the ring light stopped and my phone's about to die and I had to move my whole setup and be like, oh, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, you know what? No, like, this shows my commitment to following through this podcast, getting it out by the date I said I was going to. So I needed to finish filming it tonight or I wasn't going to be able to get that done in time. So that actually shows my commitment to you guys, you know? So there's always a positive in every perceived negative situation, obstacle, trigger, whatever, you name it, right? So yeah, that is why you want to achieve full acceptance and see everything as perfect. You're going to have so much more peace knowing that everything is happening the way it's supposed to. It's perfect. It's helping you. It's helping your life get better. It's teaching you a lesson that's going to help you progress and evolve in the future. And it's going to ultimately, you're just going to have so much more happiness and fulfillment in your life by achieving full acceptance of things that happened to you in the past. I guarantee it, okay? And also, when you're in complete acceptance of yourself and everything that you do as a person, right? You're not going to be beating yourself up. You're not going to be critical. You're not going to be doing all of that old stuff where you have the shame, the guilt, the regret, all of that. That's going to be self-love, mastery, embodiment. So achieving full acceptance is actually mastering self-love as well, which is a win-win situation because self-love is the foundation of my love energetics method. And you can't manifest your soulmate and sustain that long-term partnership and maintain it in a healthy, passionate, loving, fulfilling way long-term if you do not have your own self-love. So getting to acceptance is going to also help you with self-love, which is also going to help you manifest your soulmate and live out your dream love life as well. So, I mean, the benefits are literally endless. Honestly, me standing up right now, if you're listening to this, you can't tell, but me standing up, I feel like I'm like thriving right now in the way that I'm speaking. So maybe I should do it more often. With that self-love mastery, you know, you're not going to be constantly criticizing yourself anymore. So your confidence is going to skyrocket. And because your life is a mirror, if you are fully accepting of yourself, others are going to be fully accepting of you. And since you're being less critical of yourself, other people aren't going to criticize you. And because you're being more loving towards yourself in that way, people are going to be more loving towards you. So you're going to be cultivating more love in every area of your life. So in all of relationships, your dating life, your friendships, your family, all of it. So that's just another benefit that I thought of off the top of my head. And your health's going to improve. I mean, just you name it. If you are not completely motivated and inspired to achieve full acceptance after this podcast episode, then I don't know what will. And if you're confused on anything I talked about, because this was a heck of a lot, DM me. I'd love to chat through this with you further. Comment below what questions you have. If you want me to make a follow-up episode, to this, like, let me know. I would love to just continue diving deeper into this so you guys are fully equipped to change your lives in the best way possible. And of course, manifest your dream love life and achieve self-love mastery. So I summarized the process for you guys. You can go back, listen to it, write it down. You can see the visual I included on the YouTube video and give me a little subscribe if you did that as well, because that would be awesome. Because getting the things to be shown on YouTube is, you know, it's the best thing that happened to me, but it is a little challenging to get those views out there. So any support would be so helpful. Ways to work with me are going to be in the caption. You could also go to my website, mariamanifest.com/links. I have all my different offerings there that I talked about earlier, but there are so many ways to dive deeper into this with me. I want to help you achieve this at a deep level, at a mastery level, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you leave this episode feeling really inspired to achieve full acceptance and that I gave you enough information for a full step protocol that you can start doing this on your own. But again, if you have one of those higher level things that you want to achieve acceptance for now, you don't want to wait around for, you want to just be done with that highly emotional situation that you've been holding on to, I'm your girl. Sign up for a one-on-one Lucky in Love activation, or you can apply for the 3 or 6 month coaching programs, and I would love to have you. So, all right, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and it was great chatting with you. Thank you for listening to the Love Energetics podcast. Thank you for your support. Please share this with a friend that you think needs this and would find it valuable. And I'll talk to you again in the next episode. Okay?